Here's our really no really of the day. So I was recently in New York for the summer, directing a Broadway show. And I lived in New York for 10 years, and I've been away I haven't lived in New York for the better part of 30 years. But I will tell you, anecdotally, the rat problem in New York City has grown exponentially. And my understanding is it has grown exponentially in most of the major cities in our country. But New York, being an innovator, this was the really no really. The rat problem is so bad that there is now rat tourism.
Because in New York, they take advantage of everything.
They eat the whole animal. They take you on a tour to see the worst rat-infested areas where the rats are.
Really? No, really? Really? No, really? Really?
Dr. Robert Corrigan is a renowned rodentologist. He's consulted on rodent populations and infestations across the country. He was inducted into the Pest Management Professional Hall of Fame in 2008. Now, that is a Hall of Fame that I hope...
We got to find out where that is, how much they charge,
what's the ticket,
and, and what do you get to see?
Right. What's inside
and
there?
Is there a lunchroom?
Yeah, and a gift shop. This man knows his rats.
He knows his rats.
And you say hello to Dr. Robert Corrigan. Welcome, sir.
Hello, you guys. How you doing?
I expected to see, if you're watching on YouTube, I expected to see a whole room with cages and pestilence and lab, all kinds of things. Nothing.
Yeah. No, sorry to disappoint. I have a little bit of that, but not much.
Well,
that's because the family said it goes in the garage.
Yeah, that's right.
Look at him; he's laughing.
Don't bring your work
The wife
home.
went, yeah. You're not putting. You're not putting that in the house. So I laughed because I'm from Philadelphia. And we have a rodent problem there. And I saw that you were hired for the Pope's visit. So and Rachel and I were talking about it, and I thought, so is that like, okay, guys, I'm going to need a budget for cheese because we got to get him out of the parade route. You can't eradicate him in time, so do you just move him out to a different place until
I'm assuming the Catholic rats are going, what do you mean get out of here? What do you mean get out of here? The Pope
I've been waiting here for months to get to be first in line. So I want to know how you move them out and all that, but amazingly, you are the guy. You've traveled the entire world to do this, and we'll start with, did you really live in a barn with rats for some time to just get used to what that's like?
Yes, I did in graduate school, and it's the way I got kind of into this. But my mentor said, if you really want to get to know an animal, you got to embed yourself with those animals. So whether it's whales, swimming with the whales, or living with rats. So I moved into some barns in Indiana outside of Purdue University, and just literally slept on the floor with the rats and lived each weekend. When they were up, I was up. When they were sleeping, I was sleeping. So it was, I have to tell you guys, it was actually pretty darn exciting.
All right.
Wait, I gotta, already, my mind is just reeling. People generally don't sleep on the floor with rats. I would imagine the reason being we don't want to be crawled on. We don't want to be bitten. Were you crawled on or bitten?
I was crawled on a few times, never bitten, Jason. You know, these animals actually, they're not aggressive towards humans unless we're aggressive towards them. So, and after a while, they got to know me. I was there. They became familiar with me. I was the one giving them some really good tidbits of food. So we developed a relationship, but being on the floor, I had to be at their level. So, you know, it was pretty cool.
So we're talking to Willard. Do you understand
it's
what's going on?
unbelievable. You know, I'll jump to this because, and I'm sure you know this if you're the rat guy. In L.A., there was a house in Pacific Palisades where two sisters loved animals, and when they got older, they got a bit infirm, and
really?
they couldn't get to take care of dogs or cats, so they started doing rats, feeding them. Neighbors saw the rodents coming in and out. When the hazmat crew finally got access to their house, they were living with, they figured, approximately 2,500 rats at any given time. They had to carry out carcasses of rats, but they fed them, and they lived with these rats. What you just said makes it a little more plausible, that the rats didn't bother them, it didn't crawl all over them, but that's an infestation. That's insane.
You know, Peter, as long as they have food, you know, they're happy. But take away the food, they get pretty aggressive on each other, and they act crazy. They have a very low tolerance of being hungry. So once they get hungry, all bets are off as to how they'll interact with us.
So based on that, can I throw out a couple things to Jason, and you say right or wrong about rats, just so we can
Sure.
get, for the audience listening, they can get an education in rats right away, and then we can get into depth. Okay.
Do you think I will know these things?
I don't know,
won't
but
these
it's
things?
fascinating. So, and I can't believe I know these. Ready?
Okay.
A rat can jump approximately 4 or 5 feet.
Absolutely.
Doctor?
True.
I saw a rat. You know how I know that? A rat in my backyard leapt from the ground onto the shoulder of our housekeeper.
Oh, no.
Who was about 5.5 feet, and she, after she got out of Cedar Sinai, she said that was a 5-foot leap.
All right, rodents, rats, can go longer without water than camels.
Well, if you ask, I guess, right, they can.
I'm not going to answer yet. I'll let you answer, Jason.
He posed it as such a ridiculous question. It has to be yes. It must be a yes.
I've seen that, and I'm not sure that's true, to compare them to the camels. So we're going to have to leave that one undecided till proven.
All right. What did your research say, Peter? Did they say it was a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Rodents can actually swim up pipes into your toilet.
Oh, there was just a story the other day it couldn't be the New York Times, but I just read a story the other day where somebody said, I had read about this kind of thing, I didn't think it was possible, and the rat came right up in her toilet, and she now keeps a weight on the toilet lid.
Wow.
Yeah, they
Doctor?
do that, right?
Absolutely true, and I've been involved in those cases where, people, they're pretty upset. They're in the middle of the night, they go to use the toilet, they sit down in the darkness on a toilet, and there's a rat trying to get up below them, you can imagine, and so that'll get your attention pretty quick, but it's very, very true. And it's not all of that uncommon. It's not that uncommon.
Good night, drive safely, everybody.
I have to say, I'm 64. I have not come into
Although this may go hand in hand with that,
or
snout and butt in that. Rodents have very good memories. Rats have very good memories.
They have very good memories. That I know.
Doctor?
Also.
Very true. They have great memories, and they can play things backwards after they've done it once in their brains, and so they can do things, incredible memories.
Yeah. So if a rodent comes up into your butt, it will remember that. It may not come up again going...
You know what? We'll both remember it.
But rodents also, how do I put this in a nice way? They also eat just about anything that floats by. So they will eat feces, they'll eat stuff when they get hungry, correct?
Yes, but they do prefer good, fresh, nutritious food. So, if they had a choice be something floating by that was put into the sewer for the reasons we know versus a piece of chicken floating by, they'll pick the chicken.
All right. A rodent can unhinge its scalp and get into a hole the size of a quarter.
Wait.
A rodent can unhinge the plates in their scalp and squeeze into a space.
I know that they can squeeze into incredibly small spaces. I didn't know about the skull.
Is that correct?
Also true?
That's a half-truth, you guys. They can squeeze into sizes about the size of a quarter, but they can't unhinge. It's all about the height of that skull. So the skull measures about, the size of a quarter. And once the skull gets through, they can do the limbo, and it is the limbo. By the time they get through that hole, they're wiggling like crazy and turning around, but they can't unhinge anything. They have a skeleton just like us.
Now, why is it not? Why is their rib cage size not a factor in that?
Jason, it is a little bit. They do have a rib cage that does collapse a little bit. It's not unhinging, but it compresses down, and so they have that advantage of a specialized rib cage, but it doesn't collapse completely.
And when Peter says through the size of a quarter, I mean, some of these rats are quite large. It has to be. We're not talking about the really large rats. We're just talking sort of the common variety house rat that I might see or something.
Yeah, the common variety is this Norway rat, it's called, the typical brown rat. And once it gets that skull through, right, the rest can
really just
wiggle their way and squeeze their way through. Eventually they'll make it.
So if you hear the dun 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 dun, they're limboing. That's the giveaway that he's coming. Now I'm
tequila?
not sure.
You drink tequila? That's not even a limbo song.
I always thought it was. What's a limbo song?
Go with Deo or something like that if you want. But
oh, so if you hear what's it called?
If you hear a steel drum,
music,
you go under a stick.
So is it true, Jason, that rodents have to gnaw or their teeth will continue to grow.
That is what I've always heard. Is that true?
Not true. Not true at all. You can give them nothing but bananas to eat, you know, and that's all they have. But they keep those teeth. They do have to file them down, right? If they don't keep them filed down, they will curl around and go right through their skull and pop out the top. But
we had a guinea pig. So Peter knows this. My son had a guinea pig. That's what happened to the guinea pig. It was a $10 guinea pig that I spent $3,000 on for a dental surgery, and it didn't make it.
I go to Jason's house. I got to go to the bathroom. He goes, "Don't go in there. It's a hospital ward." I go, "What do you mean? They got tents. They got people coming in and out. They got a light. They're holding the thing's paw. I hope he makes it." Meanwhile, I go, "How long is this supposed to live if it's healthy?"
Oh my God! Yeah, no, that was a very strange
investment. The outlay for, and what's great is your son wanted it so bad, and then it was like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, once he realized they're not that much fun. They don't cuddle. They don't
cuddle at all. No. Is it true that a rodent, a rat, can eat through concrete, metal, and just about anything?
No. Well, I know that. So here's what I know. They can chew through cables. So that has some steel fiber at least. I don't know if they could eat through a steel beam. I've never heard concrete.
I didn't say steel beam. I said
metal. I think they could probably get their way through some thin pieces of metal. I don't know about concrete. Concrete can be broken down. Maybe.
Could we have an expert?
They, sir?
Great answer, Jason. But here's the deal. They can't chew through cured concrete. They can't do that. Once it's cured, it's done. However, a lot of times concrete's put out, it's still soft. Someone put the concrete over their burrow and they will burrow through that, appearing like they've eaten through it. So they'll pop out through the concrete, and thus the myth. They can't gnaw through metals for the most part, unless it's a very thin aluminum, something soft, copper. They can gnaw through or puncture a copper pipe. But in general, it's very selective as to what's yes and what's no on how they can chew.
Wow. They're very social animals, Jason, true or false, and they have families. They stay close to where there's a food source and where their families. They don't travel far.
I do know that they're very social animals because my goddaughter has had rats all her life. She loves them. She has them as pets. They are very social. They're actually very loving, as Dr. Corrigan will no doubt tell you. They are very clean.
Her family deny her a dog as a child?
No, they have dogs too, but... and you said, now, I do know that occasionally there are instances where when the babies are born, I think there are times when they are eaten by somebody in the colony. But other than that, I think they probably do. They are very social animals because I know they can travel in very large clusters and packs. Yes, sir. Am I?
Absolutely.
How am I doing? I'm gonna be your apprentice before this is done.
No, I'm thinking about this. You need a job in rodentology, Jason. Absolutely. So that was a great answer. They're very social.
Yeah,
very social. So I don't have the number in front of me, but it blew me away. It was the big oh wow, and I'm sure you have the number, that the rats reproduce so quickly, like rabbits do, that one pair of rats can create within a short period of time. And the number was astronomical. And I'm sure you as an expert, have that number, and everyone listening now is going to pass out. Go ahead. How many rats can they produce?
Well, here's the thing, you guys. It's never the straight math, right? So if a rat in an alleyway that's kept clean and what have you is only going to have offspring of several hundred rats. However, that same rat in a really dirty alleyway, and you add up all the descendants of one female starting out after a year, you're going to end up with about 15,000 rats. So it's all dependent on food, and that's why people have to realize, listen, you control the garbage, you control the rats.
And that really is, when you work as a consultant, and you're currently working, I would imagine, many major cities, but you had said before we started the interview that you're in New York City almost every day. Is that the major part of what you're consulting on, is how to change the things that we're doing that are adding to the overpopulation of the rats?
Exactly. Another great answer. Listen, when people have rat problems and they call me up and say, on our block, we see all these rats. And I always answer back and said, look, the rats have learned that your block is feeding them easily and it's good food. So it's not about getting an exterminator. It's about address your garbage. That's what the whole thing is about.
So when you come in, so I didn't realize, I know, it's a big deal that they have a rat czar in New York. And I looked, and so there are other rat czars. It's not the first rat czar appointed. But then I read these stories about Washington, D.C. They have these rogue groups that go out with their dog, the rat terriers, to round up because they feel the city's not doing it, and the city kind of looks the other way. It's not legal. They don't want rats tortured that way, et cetera. But they're doing it to mitigate the rat issue. When you consult a rat czar, it really is about changing it's all about changing our behavior. That's the only way you're ever going to get rid of them. So are they doing that, or are they doing it in conjunction with newer technology, with newer listening devices, robotics? What's the latest on rat eradication? What's working?
Yeah, it's like a little of all of the above, Peter. You know, these days, one of the things that New York City is doing is pretty impressive is they're following the science. And the science is moving really, really fast on rat mitigation. You know, it used to be just put out some poison, you know, put out some traps, and that should do it. We've been doing that for 250 years and getting no place, quite honestly. So now it's about time to bring in science. You're bringing a rat czar, and the rat czar has a critical position because that person gets all the people together that needs to do their share on rats, sit down on a table, agree that everyone's going to have responsibility, and that's key. Getting organized through a czar, absolutely critical key. The other thing, to your word, is technology. Now we have little sensors. I didn't bring one along, but you can hold it in your hand, the palm of your hand, and it's a little black sensor. As a rat goes by that, I get an alert on my iPhone. It tells me a rat was here at this spot at this time of night. And so by putting those sensors all over the area, you can get population dynamics. Once you get the population dynamics, you can get organized as to where is our war zone. And that's what it takes. You need a war room to get rid of this issue.
And so I've always, walking around New York, the thing that I've always seen that I went, of course there's rats, is the piles of the plastic garbage bags that they put out on curbside for the garbage collection. And I've always thought, a rat is chewing right through that. That is just a buffet. So is part of the new approach to change how we place garbage on the streets in the cities?
You know, one of the biggest things that come around New York City and rats for a long time, this new mayor, Mayor Adams, said, you know, I hate rats. He stated that right at the front end of everything, and he said, what do we do? What's the number one most important thing we do for rat control? He asked the scientists involved. Our response is, it's about the garbage. It's about the garbage. So the bags, Jason, to your question, they're critical. You have millions of these bags that have been going out year after year after year, many of them full of really delicious food where people couldn't finish their plates after a restaurant meal, as we all can relate to. And yes, they're going right through that plastic. So now we have new containerization bills that are occurring in New York City under this new mayor. That's going to be a giant leap forward, you know, much stronger than any poison on earth against rats. It's about no food equals no rats.
Yeah, but to your point, and I read that too, that when they don't have food and water, they get crazy. That's when they start going nuts. So now you have all these people doing the right mitigation for their food. And now you got 20,000 crazy rats in your neighborhood, not really angry rats running around. What happens? What does that look like?
So whenever you take away the food, Peter, you know, it's a case where they implode. They go under tremendous stress, and they're mammals just like you and I. And if you don't eat for a couple of weeks, you're going to be a whole different mammal, okay? And so it's a case of these animals, after a couple of days, if they don't eat, they're a whole different mammal. So they start killing each other, cannibalizing each other. As Jason mentioned earlier, they'll turn around sometimes under stress and eat every single pup that's living with them in that nest. And so these animals don't do well when they're hungry. The populations crash.
Wow. That's an insane thought that they eat the pups to stay alive.
Well, I knew that, but is that, you know, it sounds brutal. Is that a part of the eradication plan, knowing that is their behavior?
You know, indirectly, it's once you remove the food, the rats, over time, and great research has shown this going back 75 years in great referee journals, once you remove the food, the rodent populations just simply crash. And so it's a slow process over a couple of months, but you do see the end result. And so by removing the food, at least the easily accessible food, you are actually putting a big, giant challenge on those rat populations.
Wow. So living with a rat, you on the floor, you live with them, you've studied millions of rats. What would surprise us? I mean, we know they're intelligent. We know that they're kind of like us as mammals, which is why they're used in so many experiments. What would blow our mind that you've experienced being around them so much that was a surprise even to you?
They enjoy American jazz. Isn't that crazy?
But
you wouldn't have thought.
Only the Charlie Parker wing of that. The other stuff, the experimental stuff.
No.
Miles
the atonal,
I don't get it.
Nobody does.
You know, to that music comment, I'm going to tell you, research just not too long ago, a year or two ago, was published. Rats do enjoy music, and part of it, they selected Mozart. They were able to really pick out. They liked Lady Gaga. These things were measured, so they do enjoy music. But I will tell you, when I lived with them, what shocked me the most, just being there night after night, is I saw rats giving gifts to each other. They would carry a piece of food over to another rat that looked like they needed it. They would give it and walk away. And I thought it was a sheer coincidence. But now we know through good research again that rats exhibit altruism. They will give kindness. They will give gifts without expecting anything in return.
As long as they've eaten.
Wow.
That's true.
If it's not eaten,
it goes the other way.
It's coming to eat your face and your kids.
Right.
Wow.
So given that, I mean, we know they're intelligent. We know that given the resources to be clean, they're very clean animals. They're very social animals. Anecdotally, through my goddaughter, I know they can be very affectionate animals. And you certainly seem to know, and I think you have a great respect for them. So I wonder do you have any feelings about, rather than trying to eradicate them, is there another approach? Should we be learning to coexist with them in a different way? Are they beneficial to our cities in any way? Or is it really something that they're just a problem? Or is there another way to look at the problem?
Well, it's a great question. I would say we can't live with them. Right? We don't want them living with us. I don't want them in my house. I don't want them in my school or my restaurant or on an airplane with me. You know, they're a great mammal, but it's a problem when they co-inhabit too close. They can come out of a sewer, Jason, for example. Even though they're clean themselves, they will run through a sewer, and you can imagine what's on the sewer walls in terms of and then run across somebody's plate in a restaurant in the middle of the night. So we can't live close with them. But at the same time, you know, it's a great mammal. It is intelligent, and it deserves, respect to some degree. And what's more is the three of us here, for example, we probably owe a greater longevity of our own lives, 25, 30 years, to the rats, because we've been studying them backwards, forwards, upside down for many, many years for our own medicinals, cancer drugs, painkillers, so forth. It's this species, the same species in all our cities, Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, and so forth. That species is the laboratory species from which we've tested all our chemicals and drugs on. And we have a greater long life because of those animals. So to some degree, we have to say thanks.
Yeah.
So if you could convince people, and think outside the box, if you could convince New Yorkers that they'd make great pets, you start the Adopt a Rat program, get them off the street, get them in the house, feed them, pet them, shave them, dress them up in little dresses, do whatever you got to, all of a sudden they're off the street.
Yeah.
What do you think? Outside the box? Yeah? Have you tried that one yet?
That's a little bit too far outside the box.
All right.
I have to ask you a question. If my child came to me and said, "Hey, Dad, we have interviewed a man who sets himself on fire every night at Cirque du Soleil." If I'd rather have my child say to me, "I want to be that guy, Dad," than a rodentologist. What made you go,
ouch,
you know
ouch,
what?
ouch.
Yeah, how did you?
At what age?
Were you like a 7-year-old going, you know what?
Got to do this.
I think I've seen the future.
And you love it so much, and there's a joy to it,
yes.
too.
How did this spark get lit?
Listen, I have to tell you guys and tell everybody, rats are super cool mammals to study. They're mysterious. That's probably the thing that dragged me into this. I love the mysterious thing. I was crazy for Sherlock Holmes. And so here's an animal that is intelligent, and it keeps out of the way in the middle of the night. It hides in deep corners. It has a diabolical, clever behavior. And that's true, diabolically clever. So, all of that put together, I said, I want to do that. I want to go into dark attics and dark sewers and look at animals that know how to do it really well in places we don't even have any light, and they do it intelligently. So once you start studying this animal, it's very humbling. You come out of that saying, My goodness, we don't know anything about this animal, but we just assume it's a stupid varmint. That's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
So for me, it's exciting. It's every single day is a new day.
But you know, a lot of people. I don't have. This is not one of mine, but a lot of people have a revulsion to these animals. Were you never? Was that never? Because I'm sure you've gone to places where there's a huge infestation. You've never been sort of creeped out by them.
I've been totally creeped out, and I had no money for college, so I took a job as an exterminator in New York City, actually, to save money to get through college, and they put me in the sewers to hang poison bait. And in the sewers, my heart was racing. I've never been in such an environment. So rats were going by my face, and I was just like, what am I doing here? I got to get out of this job. So I was frightened to death. But over time, and over education at the university, I realized, hey, there's a lot more to this than just that image of rats in front of your face.
What's interesting is that the fear, the irrational fear of rats, you know what it's called? Is it musophonia? I have misophonia, which is the annoying sound thing. Musophonia is the fear of rats, right?
Correct. A fear of rodents, Peter. Fear of rodents.
Fear of rodents, yes. Which is, but is that an irrational fear or just a fear?
Well, it's justified. If I can jump in, it's an animal that, listen, when we slept in the caves, on the floor in the caves, over time, rats did bite people. They did kill people through diseases. We learned that these animals in our caves can kill us. So we've taken that fear a long way. It's not
irrational.
And by the way, before we go, because we just want to go out on a high note, how many diseases do they carry?
So if that's a high note, but I will tell you that the Center for Disease Control lists 55 different diseases associated with this animal, 55. The good news is on this is they don't transmit them easily to us. So they do carry them technically, but the transmission factor is kind of a weak piece.
Wow.
Here's one other thing I must know. What is and where is the Pest Management Hall of Fame?
The pest management industry is one of the most essential industries of all industries, but they're behind the scenes.
Right.
So all of us, our longevity, our health, our food protection, our home protection, all that's done by the pest management industry, of course. Without that industry, it would all be toast. So those of us that are involved in teaching and training and those kinds of things with that industry, they offer awards every year as to, someone that's accomplished something within the pest management industry to further that industry. And they created the Hall of Fame. It's probably located, it is located at a publisher, that publishes magazines and books on pest control and nature and these kinds of things. So that's where it exists.
Oh, so it's not a physical building that I can go and see Steve Plifkin, who walked in.
The first guy to use a mallet on a rodent in 1805.
There's no physical building, I'm assuming.
There's a publisher's building, and they have the plaques on the wall, so you can technically visit it. Yes.
All right.
So
they don't have stuffed Ratzilla.
We were ready to go. We were going to do live broadcasts from the Rat Hall of Fame. So you just wanted. By the way,
we've played worse places.
I got to read your quote and then ask you this final question. Your quote is: "Rodents comprise 43% of all mammal species on Earth. What's not to admire about such success in science, art, mystery, and their essential contributions?" Do you feel, as we wrap and say goodbye, do you feel bad for these animals?
It is kind of sad, to be honest with you, that it's a paradox that because they get too close to us and can threaten our health and our buildings and this kind of thing, at the same time, they're great animals, great intelligent animals, very clever and everything we mentioned, and yet we're at war with them when they move into our cities just to get easy food and easy harborage. It's a shame.
Thank you, Dr. Corrigan.
Thank you so much, sir.
Man.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks, Dr.
You were
Corrigan.
terrific. Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it. Good luck with all your work.
Thanks for all the laughs over the years, Mr. Seinfeld. Thank you.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Let's go to Mr.
Mr. Guggenheim. What did we learn today?
My question for you is do you think that rats in the United States are in the top 10 most kept pets?
Rats?
What do you say?
Well, so there's dog, cats. I know ferrets have gotten very big.
Bunnies.
Pigs, bunnies,
Snakes.
guinea pigs,
Snakes.
and reptiles, turtles.
Birds.
Fish. I would say they, my guess would be they're in the top 10, yeah.
And I would say they just missed the top 10.
You both are incorrect. It's actually number 8. 18 in the
Oh,
list.
okay. All right.
Yeah, there's about 400,000 homes, household families, have rats. Now, this one really blew my mind, and I actually had to do some deeper research because I didn't even believe this is possible. What is the number 3 most popular pet in the country?
A bird, something in the bird family.
You would think.
Wait, reptile family? Reptile?
No, hedgehog.
Oh, my goddaughter had a hedgehog. Now this girl, her whole life, her professional career is animals. She is about animals. She had this hedgehog and she had to give it up. She named it Ogdi, Ogdi. And it was an anagram for, ouch, goddammit. Hedgehog. You know what? They're actually very sweet, but they are hard to care for. And
they're very controversial.
Yeah,
very
and
controversial.
they
also
will get you.
hedgehog chow is so expensive.
It is the most.
I'm looking it up on my phone to see
pet.
Yeah.
And if you put dogs and cats to the side, it is the number 1 most popular pet in Connecticut, Minnesota, Oregon, and Wyoming.
Why? Why a coalition of those 5 states?
I got to see what these. I don't even know what it looks like.
A hedgehog? It looks like
They're
a little
very
porcupine.
cute,
A tiny little
for
porcupine.
the
But they're
claws.
very sweet.
Oh, wow. Laurie can put up the picture of the hedgehog. Oh my God. It looks like a little porcupine. It's so gross.
It's got a sweet little face. It does.
It looks like it could turn on you like it's hiding a secret.
It's a sweet little face. It really is. But they're not fun to hold.
The sweet little face looks like I'm going to bite your ass.
No, they don't really. No, they're very sweet.
Do they crap everywhere? Do they pee everywhere? Can they be trained?
I don't know.
Hedgehog. I'm blown away. It's number 3. It's got to be a lie.
Yeah.
It's got to be a lie. I don't know one person with a hedgehog. Anybody here have a hedgehog? No.
But I know somebody who had a hedgehog.
So that's 1.
Yeah.
Out of a group of people, everybody knows
they're
some.
illegal in some states. I imagine they might be illegal in California.
They might.
Like
My goddaughter was a bit of a scofflaw.
Hedgehogs don't like to be anywhere where pot is legal. What else you got? What else you got? Go on.
That's it. Everything else was.
Well, can I just
Very
say
accurate,
this
very
has been illuminating, and I'm going to go out and buy some CO2.
There was one thing you brought up when we were talking about doing this episode, and it's how people get into different careers and why people like with the tours.
Yeah.
Why people like looking at that kind of disaster
Why do
stuff.
that? Who would go
'Cause you
on
had
that
mentioned,
tour?
Well, you know what you mentioned to me, and Laurie's going to agree with you. You watched Dr. Pimple Popper. Why is anybody watching that?
Well,
People like to watch weird stuff.
yeah.
Who wants to watch that? Why would you want to watch that? You don't watch it, Laura?
You don't watch it,
it?
Lori? Dr. Pimple Popper?
No. See, that's, ugh.
She's here. I guess for me, it's the notion of people come in like with a thing, on their and all it is it's usually a cyst or something else that once you lance it and drain it.
Oh.
And I go, why would you walk around with that for years at a time?
Why would you put that on TV and think people will watch it? And they do.
Well, she started with these YouTube videos, and they were fascinating to see what comes out of the human body in this.
So
way.
there you go. That's the answer to the rodent tours.
But
it's
that's
the same
not
people.
the rodent tour. The rodent tour. But the pimple isn't going to jump up and bite me. I mean, can you imagine walking down into a rat-infested subway or sewer, and these things are running around? I had a rat run over my foot once, and I thought I was going to have. That was another year of therapy.
We had a rat in our house upstairs in the attic, and I couldn't tell. My wife said, "I think we have a rodent," and I called the exterminating company, and I get up on a ladder, and I push up the thing to look in the crawl space, and I put a flashlight in,
Yeah.
and there's a rat. To me, looks like he's 800 pounds.
Right.
And he's looking at me like, "Yeah, what do you want? What,
Yeah.
what are we doing?"
You got
And I
something?
came down. My wife goes like this. So did you see anything? I go, no, because I knew. If I said yes, she would go
You'd move
screaming
the
out of the
house.
house
Right.
with a sign,
Yeah.
and we're moving at that point.
Yeah.
And I told the guy when he came to capture it, I said, you didn't see anything, and do it when she's not here, because we'll have to move. But this guy was like there giving me the finger. He's going, yeah, I'm eating. Leave me alone.
We had a guy, when I lived in New York, the first apartment Dana and I lived in, we had, I don't know if it was a mouse or a rat, but we knew we had something because we saw the droppings, and we couldn't find where it was coming from. We couldn't find a hole. One night, we're sitting in the living room watching Star Trek, and I look down, and you know how they like to go along the edges of walls? They don't present themselves. This thing is sitting in the middle of the floor watching the Star Trek episode, And I went, well, now I can't get rid of him because he's a fellow fan.
You know what that
is? He's a fellow fan.
It was a tribble episode.
It was a tribble.
A tribble episode, and he liked it. There you go. And there you have it. And we're out.
And so the rats clearly are fans. All right. Let's get the heck out of here. And
it's enough already. It's enough already.
Yeah, really.
See you.
All right.
No, really.